You booked a cruise, you made it to the port to check in, and they tell you something's wrong. Your boarding has been denied, and your vacation is over before it even started. Unfortunately, more and more cruise passengers are getting denied boarding these days. In fact, a couple of months ago, almost 100 passengers from a single celebrity cruise ship were denied boarding. But I don't want this to happen to you, so I'm going to give you the 5 newest reasons that cruise passengers are being denied boarding, as well as 2 old mistakes that many cruisers still make. I'm Gary with Optimal Cruising, bringing you the cruise insider information you need to avoid mistakes, save money, and protect yourself so that you can have your best cruise ever. The visa landscape has been changing rapidly over the past several years, and the cruise lines have no obligation to notify you. Ultimately, the onus is on the cruiser to know what they need to board that cruise. And cruise lines will not let you board if you don't have the proper documents. So if you booked a cruise 12 months ago and you haven't been thinking about the countries you're going to and if anything's changed with the documentation you need, it's very important to check this out before you go, at least within the last month before you're leaving on that cruise, because changes are happening that are affecting people. One big one is the new visa requirement for Brazil. So now all US and Canadian citizens must have an electronic visa to get into Brazil. So if you're on a cruise that's going to stop in Brazil but is leaving from another country where you don't need that visa, you still have to have the Brazil visa to get on board that cruise. And cruise lines will deny your boarding if you don't have it. This is especially important if you're taking any type of repositioning cruise, because most repositioning cruises start in one country and end in another, and they hit a bunch of different countries along the way. And if there are any visa requirements or electronic authorizations that you need to step foot in those countries, you need to have those to board the cruise. Even if you have no intention of getting off the ship there, the cruise line will still not let you board if you don't have the proper visa. What do you think? Should the cruise lines take more of an active approach on notifying passengers when there are changes in the documents required to board their cruise ships? Let me know in the comments below. Have you ever had a charge on your credit card bill that you thought was either excessive or fraudulent, so you called the credit card company and asked them to remove it and charge back the vendor? Well, a lot of cruisers have been doing this lately, and it has caused the cruise lines to develop a blacklist of people banned from their cruise line and their partner cruise lines. And even if you had another cruise booked with them already and you show up for boarding, you would be denied. If you ever have a dispute over a bill or a charge with a cruise line, your best bet is to handle it directly with them. If you go through the credit card company and try to do a chargeback, and even if you win, the cruise line can still put your name on that banned list. Ever since I was a kid, you could always travel to England, to Europe, no visa required. You might have a limit on how long you can stay there, but nothing else was ever checked, just a stamp in your passport. But that is rapidly changing. There are 2 massive electronic visa systems that are being put into place. The one for the United Kingdom is already in place, and anyone taking a cruise across the pond to the UK will have to have an electronic travel authorization. It's all done online and it's rather simple, but if you don't know about it, you could end up showing up to board that cruise and be denied because they will check and they won't let you on board if you don't have it. Expected to be in place by the end of 2026. It's a system for all of the European Union. So if you're traveling to any EU country on a cruise, and this would be mostly like a transatlantic cruise, but it could also be a cruise from London to other parts of the EU. So let's say you got the travel authorization to get to the UK, and then you're trying to board a cruise that you booked that's going to stop in maybe France, the Netherlands, Germany, and go back to the UK. They won't let you on board in the future if you also don't have the travel authorization for the European Union. They're 2 separate things. They have their own fees, and they're both electronic. They're not physical visas that you need. They're not even technically visas. They're just travel authorizations so that they can keep track of who's entering and leaving the country, when they are doing so, and how long they're staying. Now, this seems rather silly for a cruise because you're just getting off at these ports for a day and you have to get back on the ship, but it's still going to be required and you won't be allowed to board unless you have it. This one caught me off guard because it has been changed subtly. I haven't seen this advertised anywhere. The cruise lines are changing the age requirements, and that is the minimum age allowed to board the ship for certain sailings. MSC is the most egregious, which has now put in a policy that an infant under 2 years old cannot board a cruise that is 11 days or longer in length. Even if you were able to book that cruise with that child, you're not going to be able to board because of the new policy change. Royal Caribbean, for example, has a policy of no children under 6 months, but for certain sailings in Hawaii, trans-Pacific sailings, transatlantic sailings, they will not allow children under 12 months. These age policies for infants have been quietly changing, and they will probably change more as other cruise lines start to follow this. If you're traveling with small children, your best bet is to check the policy directly with your cruise line before you book, or call the cruise line directly. Don't rely on a travel agent to be up on this information. It's not something that's being widely shared. It's just being done kind of behind closed doors. If you're looking to book a cruise, we maintain a list of the best cruise deals you can book right now. If you'd like a copy, just comment deals or click on the deals link in our description. There are a growing number of instances where cruise passengers have been denied boarding because they showed up well after their assigned boarding time, even though they were there before boarding closed. This varies widely by port and cruise line. Some ports are cracking down on this more than others. In some cases, the port authority or the cruise line are refusing to let them check in because they are trying to get everybody else who was supposed to be there at that later time processed efficiently, and they don't want to extend the boarding window. Boarding windows close well before the ship is even scheduled to depart. So don't assume that you're safe getting there at 3:30 if the ship is leaving at 5 and your boarding time was at 2:30. You had better be there well before 2:30. My suggestion is get there at least at the beginning of your boarding window, if not 15 minutes early. Allow for something to go wrong along the way so that you don't run into this type of problem. Now, I'm going to get to 2 big mistakes that too many cruisers still make that get them denied boarding. But before I do, if you would take a minute and hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. It helps us grow and will continue to bring you cruise insider information. It amazes me how common it is that people don't make their cruise because they packed their travel documents in their suitcase, checked it with the porter to get on board, and forgot that they're going to need it when they check in with the cruise line. It happens, and it happens every month. I know it goes without saying. I'm sure all of you know this, but please keep your travel documents on your person. They must be with you at all times throughout the boarding process. Otherwise, you will be denied, and the cruise line doesn't care. They're not going to go and try to find your bag. I mean, if you get a nice worker there, they might try to help out, but the chances of them finding that bag once the porters have taken it from you are pretty slim. In the modern world, it is best to always cruise with a passport. It is your protection against anything going wrong during that cruise. However, for a lot of circular cruises from the United States, cruise lines still allow, and the law still allows, you to cruise with just a birth certificate. And it always shocks me how many people still do this. But bringing the wrong birth certificate can actually get you denied boarding. And too many passengers are still doing this. And what I mean by the wrong certificate is they'll bring the one that they got from the hospital, which is not an official birth certificate. It's the one that a lot of times will have your little feet print on there. But it's the hospital certificate. You need the government issued birth certificate in order to board any cruise. They're not going to accept anything less than that. If it's not issued by a state agency in the US, you will not be allowed to board. So now that you won't get denied boarding, once you step on board, a lot of passengers are getting ripped off. I'll tell you how to avoid that right here.